Is Creative Assembly and, more importantly, Total War in some hot water? Sega Sammy, also known as Sega or Sega Sammy Holdings Incorporated is its full name, sent out this notice regarding implementation of structural reforms in the consumer area as of today, September 28th of 2023. And in it details a record-breaking loss for the company. What that means for Creative Assembly, which this implementation is being centered around, and how it affects games now and going forward. So again, we are expecting a fiscal loss for Sega Sammy. Sega Sammy has seen a lot of growth and has achieved a lot of rapid earnings by promoting the global branding of its existing IPs and other measures. The foray into the Chinese market with Total War was a relative success at first, so this is kind of what they mean. They've been expanding globally to try and push their games and everything else otherwise. Between COVID-19, economic downturns, and I have to say it, I think Brexit does play a large part in this, mainly centered around Creative Assembly. Profitability in the European region has dropped dramatically. Now, I will say this, before you start saying, well, Total War's recent change and all that stuff has seen a huge loss, I don't think the loss from Total War's changes and implementations of DLC and patches and things of that nature, I don't think that has contributed such a huge footprint to where Sega Sammy is stomping on that. I will say that that has affected profitability without a doubt, but not to the degree where Sega Sammy is coming out and it's saying because of these implementations, we're cutting things. There is a larger picture here overall, but it is centered on its European bases. So they made some difficult decisions and canceled some titles under development as well to reduce the fixed expenses. The biggest area that this affects is that HYENAS, Creative Assembly's, I would say, mid-2010 style FPS hero shooter in space, has been nixed. Now, this was always a controversial decision anyways, throughout the Total War community, Creative Assembly, gaming in general. I love the team. I've met some of the team at TwitchCon Paris, but I have to say I don't understand why HYENAS was ever in development and why it was ever in development under Creative Assembly's wing. Creative Assembly does great work. They are focused mainly on strategy titles. You have Halo Wars 2, and of course the Total War franchise. So to develop and switch and go into a first-person shooter never made much sense. And we can see why, obviously, when things are taking a very hard downturn, that Sega Sammy has decided to nix it completely. Not only that, they have nixed some unannounced titles under development. I have to caveat this right away. I don't think that this is Creative Assembly targeted only. There are other companies in the European realm that Sega Sammy owns. They have a whole division called Sega Europe. And so I have to say, I don't think that it is just targeted. All these unannounced titles could be Amplitude. It could be any of the, I'm sure, I don't know exactly who else Sega Sammy owns in the European region, but there could be an unannounced project that Amplitude was going to work on, or any of the other titles that are unannounced from other companies. This is fixated on the European region, not Creative Assembly in this area. So HYENAS was obviously the highest profile game. That's going to had cost a lot of money, and so that is nixed, as well as some other unannounced titles. And then a reduction of fixed expenses really is just corporate terminology for layoffs. So we do expect to see Creative Assembly see some layoffs. Now, it has to be said that Creative Assembly is one of the largest, if not the largest, development company in Europe. I think they have ballpark 900 employees. And so I think what we've seen over the last few years is that Creative Assembly was seeing some extra money. And I think, to be completely honest, overextended their capacity. They blew up from, I think, 600 to 800 over the course of a year. And that is a huge blow up in employees. That's a lot of bloat, I'm not going to lie. And I was always concerned that Creative Assembly was expanding too fast for the cost and effectiveness that was being implemented. So, as a result, a reduction occur one-time expenses related to the reduction of fixed expenses. Fixed expenses are your constants. That is salaries. That's not even necessarily development costs, although development costs are part of that, hence why they nixed HYENAS. But there are other things I don't expect to see, marketing campaigns to get nixed, or some other implementations of future titles, etc. Fixed expenses does mean layoffs. And if you are affected by this and you have watched this video, leave your information, basic information down in the comment section down below. That way I can send these out to other publishers or other people, because having worked in the games industry myself, now I do have connections and would love to help any employees that are affected by this to try and get them right back up on their feet as quickly as possible. But the biggest kicker here is exactly how much Sega Sammy lost. They have a record loss in the consumer area primarily. This is where Creative Assembly lives. 14.3 billion yen for the fiscal year, which ends March 31st of 2024. So they are making this statement in September of 23, knowing that there is an additional 6 months left to get through their fiscal year. They are recording a loss of 14.3 billion yen, which is approximately 93 million US dollars. That is a pretty substantial loss. I'm not going to lie. Now, again, I don't think that HYENAS cost $10 million. I don't think it cost $5 million. I could be wrong on that part. But I'm going to say that HYENAS is not the reason why they are recording this massive loss. It's contributing to it. I don't think that Creative Assembly's marketing decisions and development decisions have caused this 14.3 billion yen loss, but I do think it is contributing to it. Warhammer 3 did not sell as well as they were predicting. It did sell well, but not as well. Its DLC policy has not been received. Total War Pharaoh is not being received well. HYENAS has never been received well. Creative Assembly is in a hot boat right now. It's not looking super fantastic, but I also will caveat with this. I don't think Sega Sammy is unwise enough to cancel some of those unannounced projects that we know has to be in development. There are very strong rumors that Medieval 3 is in the works, Empire 2, and a Warhammer 40k scenario game. As a result, I don't think they would do those. Warhammer is an easy cash cow, even with all the licensing fees and agreements, that I think Sega Sammy would see that as still profitable and worthwhile. Medieval 3 and Empire 2 are obviously in development. They may get scaled back now. I'm not going to lie. This is affecting development without a doubt in Creative Assembly. But whether it will actually cause them to be canceled is highly unlikely. Now, I know there's been some concerns about potentially the Sophia team. Will they get nixed? I don't see the Sophia team getting nixed at all. I think that Sophia has a great deal of freedom and independence in how they develop things. I believe that the Sophia team is one of the most efficient parts of Creative Assembly. They do things well. I can't speak to their budget and whether they go over or under budget, but I will say that they are one of the most solid teams that Creative Assembly owns, and to nix the Sophia team would be a huge mistake that would eventually cause even more loss. So I don't think that that's possible. So while Creative Assembly is in a hot boat and in a hot mess at this current moment, and HYENAS is getting nixed and things aren't looking super great, I don't think Total War franchise in general is going to be too under fire. It just doesn't seem smart, I guess you could say. Now, I think that there are other underlying things that I won't speak to now that are going on. But what I can say is that I think Total War itself is going to be safe. Pharaoh may be a profitable game. It may see a loss. But I don't think that's a result of Sophia's team. I think it's a larger leadership issue overall. Creative Assembly is going to get hurt from this, but at the same time, you're almost trimming the fat here. So this record loss is scary, without a doubt. It will result in people getting laid off, which is always terrible. And again, let me know your information. I'll see what I can't do for you. But I will say that I think in the long term, this will make Creative Assembly a more efficient machine, that maybe they'll be able to get their heads together a little more, create a more cohesive direction that has some smarter decisions with the community in mind, fully understanding that community alignment will result in more sales because people are going to trust you. They are going to believe that you have their best interest in mind, and it will be better overall. But I guess we'll see. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. $93 million is a lot. What do you think they could do outside of just nixing development of an entire game and laying off a lot of people? What other ways can Sega Sammy make Creative Assembly more profitable? and you have to think not purely in money's sake. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. That's all I got. It's an interesting time to be in. At the end of September, we're looking into Q4 and seeing things like Total War Favorite releasing in just a little bit and things of that nature. What are some games that may be affected by this or not affected at all? We'll have to see. Thank you guys for watching. This is Havoc. I'll see you in the next one.